It's a beautiful Sunday and a very warm welcome to our main news bulletin at 19:30 on Camnet TV. Let's look at the headlines. President Hakainde Hichilema urged to detach the Office of the Public Protector from State House. Former President Edgar Lungu advised to stay away from politics. A policy think tank is against government decision to import MEALIE meal. In our international headlines, blast in Mali kill and injure dozens as government fears resurgence of terrorist incidents. And in sports, Newcastle beats Tottenham by 6-1. We have the details after this message.
Water is life. Each drop counts and each must be cherished. Our tried and tested product meets all international standards. With our smart drip technology, we aim to deliver precision irrigation designed to reduce blockage and wastage, ensuring a high yield. RenGlow, your smart irrigation partner.
Thank you so much for joining us to present the news. My name is Louisiana Lupumbwe, and now the news in detail. The Civil Society for Poverty Reduction has observed that Zambia has sufficient laws to ensure the well-being of girl children, but that the problem is poor implementation. CSPR Executive Director Fides Tambatamba explains that there are a number of laws that protect a girl child under various ministries, especially the Ministry of Education. Ms. Tambatamba notes that the lack of adequate social counseling is hindering the retention of girls in schools. She notes that in order to activate the objective enhanced funding for girls, it is very crucial, and she adds that in a quest to protect a girl child, boys must equally be given the necessary attention in order to make sustainable progress to achieve gender inclusion.
Also, I feel what is lacking is psychosocial services, because some of the girls who get married at a tender age, some of them do it not because they want to, and you see they're exposed to a lot of trauma, and so it becomes very difficult for them just to adapt. They need psychosocial services and counseling, and I know that the Ministry of Education does provide guidance and counseling in the schools, but how we need also to assess how effective that has been, and also does it respond to the needs of the girl child? Is it just career counseling, or it's comprehensive counseling, including all those aspects? But the other thing is we need also funding to ensure that the number of girls that drop out correspond to the number of girls that re-enter schools after dropping. I think in the last 2 years or so, we've not had data just to tell us how many of the girls that dropped out went back to school, and can we track where exactly they are and the progress they are making in those schools. And I think for me that's what we need to focus on, and also just reinforce the current existing laws. They are very good laws, and I think if we applied those laws and if we financed the Ministry of Education and other sectors, because this is a multi-sector response, we also need to bring on board Ministry of Community Development to provide psychosocial services and other key stakeholders to come on board and just help in ensuring that we retain the girl in the school.
Federation of Muslim Dawah Organization Sheikh Omar al-Bashir has observed that the problem with junkies that is affecting Zambians requires concerted effort to combat. Sheikh al-Bashir notes that junkies are people who have lost hope due to the deconstruction of society. He says these are people who have fallen out of the school system, a lack of employment opportunities and skills. The religious leader has since underscored the need to provide junkies with spiritual guidance and empower them with skills so that they can become independent and responsible members of the community.
Lose hope on leadership itself, because they expect to be offered jobs, but they don't have jobs. Sometimes they dropped out of school. They didn't have school fees. So sometimes it's not because they wanted, it's because the situation forced them to do so, to drop out of school, and therefore they cannot get jobs. If they cannot get jobs, sometimes somebody may want to get solace, and where they get solace is in drinking, because after he's in stupor, then it's like he forgets his problems. But that's not forgetting problems, it's just postponing problems. Now, the junkies are with us. They are our brothers, they are our sisters. Some of them are even our fathers, and some are our sons. We cannot just ignore them and say they are junkies anyway. We have to find a way of helping them, and that is somehow where we come in. We cannot just leave them in the gutters. We try our level best. We call them. We sort of give them spiritual guidance. We talk to them. We remind them what is expected of them by God Almighty, by the society. Because if he is reformed, he stops drinking and starts to become responsible, probably he lands a job, he's going to live or lead a honorable life, he's going to feed his family, or probably he's going to marry and live a honorable life and feed his family in a honorable way. Now, this can only happen if we talk to them. Otherwise, if we fear them, or probably pass very, very far from them, fearing that they may mug us, or they stab us, or something like that, they will just do the same thing we are fearing.
Civil rights activist Brebna Changala has appealed to President Hakainde Hichilema to remove the Anti-Corruption Commission from State House to guarantee its independence in the execution of its mandate. He says President Hichilema must decommission the gazetted Notice 11 and 23 to remove the Office of the Public Protector, the Anti-Corruption Commission and other institutions from the State House to warrant their autonomy. And Mr. Changala says if the fight against corruption is to be won, there is need to detach the executive arm of government from oversight institutions. Details are in this report.
Upon taking over office, Republican President Hakainde Hichilema, among key steps he undertook was to place the Anti-Corruption Commission, SEC, under his office, much to the displeasure of some proponents of good governance. This was done through Gazette Notice number 1123 of 2001, formally putting the SEC, the newly created Anti-Financial and Economic Crimes Commission, and the Office of the Public Protector, among other key institutions, under his office. But civil rights activist Brebna Changala tells Camnet TV News that such an act has the potential to compromise the independence of critical public institutions. He says the executive arm of government is also a potential culprit of corruption and abuse of authority, hence it cannot be supervising watchdog institutions.
Remove the offices of SEC, Anti-Corruption Commission, the Public Protector, and indeed the Financial Intelligence Center from its chambers, from State House. Allow them to be autonomous, independent, and let them make their investigation as professionals, not to be guided and controlled by the executive, which is a potential client of SEC and DEC, because corruption and abuse of office and abuse of public resources is mainly in the executive arm of government. So the executive cannot control an institution that is supposed to curb corruption and fight the abuse of office. Many things that were promised are now a challenge because of lies and deceit.
And Mr. Changala has urged the United Party for National Development UPND administration to operationalize the Office of the Public Protector.
Promise the people of Zambia to enact, or rather operationalize, the Public Protector, which is moribund at the moment. That institution is for the good of this country, but most importantly, it will help the executive, because it's an independent institution that has so much legal power and influence to carry out their mandate.
Patrick Soko, Camnet News in Lusaka.
The opposition New Generation Party has re-echoed calls that former Republican President EDGAR LUNGU take up his position as father of the nation, advising him to let go of any ambitions regarding his comeback to the presidential race. Speaking to journalists Sunday morning, party president Humphrey Sulapwa says as the only surviving former head of state in Zambia, it is important that he takes off his political jacket, at least for now, to allow many citizens to tap into the wisdom he has acquired as head of state. Mr. Sulapwa has noted that Mr. Lungu was placed on that position for a reason, hence the need for him to be open enough to the public and not just the Patriotic Front members. The opposition leader says the former head of state should stay away from commenting on political matters, but focus on advising the current head of state, President Hakainde Hichilema, owing to the fact that he is the only one with experience to hold the higher office, making him an important part of Zambia's developmental trajectory. He says despite the losses and gains made by the Patriotic Front Party, the good records that the party has recorded can be used as a starting point for continuous development.
Not given by any human being or group of human beings. When you served as president, you have experience which very few people have, and this qualifies you to be the father of the nation. Unfortunately, for Zambia, you are the only living former president. We need you, Mr. President, as the father of the nation. Find ways, Mr. President, to engage and work with President Hichilema and benefit the Zambian people. You are already a great man. The fact that you have served as president. Zambia needs you, and President Hichilema can do with your knowledge and experience to make our country better and great. HH is your young brother. Please, Mr. President, be the big boy in the room. Call him. Open a new chapter and work with him. You have nothing to lose when you do this, but Zambians have everything to gain. Start attending government functions and advise where necessary.
Lume's independent area member of parliament, Monia Zulu, has commended government on the increased Constituency Development Fund (CDF) allocation from 25.7 million kwacha in 2022 to 28.3 million kwacha in 2023. Speaking when he flagged off works of the newly procured grader, procured at over 200,000 kwacha through the increased CDF allocation, Mr. Zulu says desks are being procured in schools and some mothers' shelters are under construction in the district. Speaking at the same event, Lumezi Town Council Chairperson Oliver Mwale says with most roads being impassable, the grader will open up the road network for the benefit of other people. Meanwhile, Lumezi District Commissioner Jimmy Piri says the procurement of such heavy machinery as a grader using CDF is the first of its kind in Lumezi, which is expected to expand development.
Samari ngani sumbi chupenjeka ekuti chakachikwiza tizagulezo ichiso mbweti pali chitukuko ngati ishipalije tuchitachi tuchita apa tikakhala mu CDF committee meeting palundazi de ngasuzgana nawo chomene banyani makansela banyake bakakananga kuti yayi ndalama zanjipa kugula chintu chimoza kwene chinozgenge Lumezi yose ichi ndiponso imwe mwanyake imwe mujimangira manyumba pala mpenja kwa yaringa mwapita kukanso mwalipira mwabukinga ngencha kuti njono zgamiseo za mafarmers pera ngati pala mpenja pa famu wagaule mwalipira kula kukanso bwenu
ndikira kuti iyi katundu ni katundu yamene inagulika kuchokera mu CDF fund. So iyi katundu ni katundu yaise makolo ise ma residents bamuno mu Lumezi so that ititandize kusegula miseu ititandize kukonza malo yonse. So ba guest of honor nizindikira kuti tikulandirirani pa msonkhano uno pamene muzachita commission katundu yamene tinagula. Tiziba kuti katundu ni katundu y'abantu banu muno mu Rumezi constituency so that itandize kusekura misewu. Tiziba bwino ati misewu muno mu Rumezi siziri bwino ziri impossible. So
ngachomene pa decision ikapangika kuti greda igulike. Ngumanya kuti muno mu Rumezi ichi njindu chikuru chomene icho sikula lino chachitika. Ichi chipangisikenge map Rumezi kuwapa map. Njachirendu kwene chifukwa cha leaders abatili nawo bakuseleza usiku na muhanya kwa mbula kupumula tukumonga nichomene ndipo mpitirizge na ruso ili kutilekelela yayi.
The Center for Trade Policy and Development has described as a poor policy reduction direction a move by government to resort to importation of mealie meal from South Africa for exportation to other countries such as the Democratic Republic of Congo. CTPD Executive Director Isaac Moipopo has attributed the shortage of mealie meal in the country to unregulated exports. Speaking with Camnet TV News in Lusaka, Mr. Moipopo notes that in order to address the problem, the government must activate the Zambia National Service and the correctional services to be contributing towards crop production for strategic reserves. He says improving production is a sustainable way of managing the export market and eventually earn more foreign exchange. Details are in this report.
The issue of mealie meal has been topical for a while now as the country witnessed a mealie meal and grain shortages due to what various players in the agriculture sector attribute to as over-exportation of the commodities. The Ministry of Agriculture and the Food Reserve Agency have been going to various parts of the country to assess the quantity of grain and engage millers on the need to ensure the availability of the country's staple food.
If we find any miller colluding with traders, either themselves directly or through traders, taking mealie meal across our borders, we are going to shut the supply of our maize, government maize, to that particular miller.
Meanwhile, a local policy think tank has observed that over-exporting is what has led to the mealie meal shortages in the country. Isaac Moipopo is Center for Trade Policy and Development CTPD Executive Director.
The government had over-permitted or had given two permits beyond that were required in terms of exporting the surplus. It should serve as a lesson with regards to how to manage the agriculture sector, and it remains our expectation that getting into the 2023 agriculture season, the Ministry of Agriculture will ensure that farming inputs are delivered on time. But above that, we call on government to consider doing the following to improve the situation when it comes to food security in the country. Number one, they should consider activating the Zambia National Service and the Zambia Correctional Service to start supporting the growing of crops that are meant to feed into strategic reserves. Secondly, government should consider undertaking an evaluation on the performance of the hammer mills and try and see what can be done to revamp that initiative.
And Mr. Moipopo made some recommendations on how the Zambian government can sustainably export grain and maize byproducts to neighboring countries.
With regards to the export of mealie meal to DRC, that one which is to be imported in the country, we think of that as a poor policy decision, and it should not be kept for a long time because it will impact negatively on our local production capacity as well as the local manufacturing in our country. We do not need to import and then export. Those are policies that would ultimately begin to hurt this country. As we move towards the new harvest for 2023, we do hope that government can change the policy direction so that we stop importing and we start prioritizing exporting the surplus that we'll get from this year But beyond that, we start encouraging production of crops under irrigation so that we can deal with food security concerns in a more sustainable manner.
Patrick Soko, Camnet News.
Just now, we break for some commercials. We'll be right back with more news.
In our quest to serve nations and develop Africa, Savenda is investing in the agriculture sector so as to produce supply for both local and international markets, housing over 12,000 pullets that are nurtured and fed with our locally made stock feed that comes from our own locally grown maize and soya beans, all processed from our recently installed milling and mixing plant. Our over 95,000 layers have an output capacity of over 1,500 trays of fresh eggs per day that are carefully selected and packaged for all the leading stores and supermarkets nationwide. Our greenhouses are fitted with the latest irrigation system, and the seedlings are nurtured to ensure only healthy plants reach the fields. With our deliberate planting schedule, we are better placed to supply constantly without interruption, thus reliable. Savenda Farms is also changing lives of its dedicated workforce drawn from the local community and beyond. So the next time you think fresh and green, think Savenda Farms.
Your skin is the biggest muscle in your body. That's why we make sure that Oracle is #1 when it comes to taking care of your precious skin. Oracle Pure Petroleum Jelly and Glycerin soothes, moisturizes and keeps your skin perfect. Oracle Pure Petroleum products for that perfect skin.
Water is life. Each drop counts and each must be cherished. Our tried and tested product meets all international standards. With our smart drip technology, we aim to deliver precision irrigation designed to reduce blockage and wastage, ensuring a high yield. RenGlow, your smart irrigation partner.
For immediate coverage of any breaking or latest news in Zambia and around the world on Camnet television, call the numbers on your screen. Camnet television, bringing to your screens fair news, impartial news, credible and reliable news all the time. Get the whole truth on Camnet World News. Camnet Television, not just another channel.
Welcome back. We continue with the news. Now, the Parliamentary Committee of Local Governance, Housing and Chiefs Affairs has applauded the Gwembe Town Council for capturing pertinent issues that affect the welfare of people in the district integrated development plan. The committee is happy that the key issues such as poor road network, shortage of human resource, lack of communication, infrastructure, perennial hunger situation, among others, have all been captured in the document. Speaking when they visited Gwembe Town Council yesterday, Committee Chairperson Newton Samakai said the committee was in the district to verify the information that was submitted to Parliament regarding the implementation of the Integrated Development Plan and the challenges the district is faced with. Mr. Samakai says the duty of the committee is to recommend to government issues that need to be done in order to improve the welfare of the people. And speaking during her presentation, Acting District Planning Officer Milanda Mlea said one of the major objectives of the Integrated Development Plan is to increase the number of households with access to clean and safe drinking water from the current 65% to above 85% by 2030.
Township, where we actually have the harbour and we neighbour Zimbabwe, we only have a police post there as well, with very few staff. And I think this raises a lot of security concerns. And I think in our IDP, we had actually proposed that along the lake, we should have at least 2 police stations. One in an area called Chisanga, which is furthest to the eastern side, bordering Sinazongwe. There's a ward called Chisanga Ward, which borders Mamba. Mamba is the closest town to Chisanga Ward. Then we had also proposed that there should be a full-fledged police station in Chipepo, because Chipepo is at the lake, and this is where we... So those are some of the things. We had also requested that housing, we have proposed in our IDP that we set up 2 immigration housing units for this particular period in that area to enhance the security concerns as well. I think so. Those are some of the... We didn't want to over-exaggerate our IDP, so we put in things that were actually realizable, looking at our capacity as a district.
Quite a number of challenges, ranging from lack of resources, motor vehicles, equipment, including human beings, levels of skills and stuff like that. So this is what we've come to try and verify on the ground, to see whether the information that we got was correct, or if there are any gaps, what are these gaps?
Former presidential political advisor Chris Zuma Nzimba urged President Hakainde Hichilema and Dr. Lungu to hold talks for genuine political reconciliation. Mr. Zimba says former President Edgar Lungu was more devastated by the brutal assassination of PF Provincial Chairperson Jackson Kungo than his electoral defeat to President Hakainde Hichilema. He said the assassination of Kungo by non-UPND cadres on August 12, 2021 had been ignored, while that of the UPND cadre Lawrence Banda was more amplified. Dr. Zimba said the same zeal to fight for Banda's justice should be extended to Kungo, even in his death, because it was too heavy and heartbreaking to President Edgar Lungu then.
Kungo was murdered physically by non-people. He was stoned like a stray street dog on that day. So to me, if these leaders, HH and ECL, could sit down and also to begin to reflect about these issues, the Gaddafi's death versus Jackson Kungo's death, and begin to talk at that level, to me, I think a better political environment can be configured where we are going in future. But as I said, it's important to note, and I want to confirm that yes, President Edgar Lungu was more depressed, devastated, and even traumatized by Jackson Kungo's murder and brutal assassination by cadres, as opposed to his election defeat to HH in 2021.
Care of Nature Zambia Executive Director Nsama Kearns is disappointed that open-air burning has remained a problem in the country due to poor enforcement of the law. Statutory Instrument number 112 of 2013 states that a person shall not conduct open-air burning of waste from industrial, commercial operations, or domestic or community activities except with written consent of the compost weeds, leaves, and grass by burying them and using the compost in your backyard garden, lawn, or flower beds. And Ms. Kearns is disappointed that people have continued to disregard the law. Patrick Soko has the details.
It is not a secret that people openly burn waste, grass, leaves, and weeds at their backyards, despite it being illegal, as they ride on the fact that in Zambia, enforcement of laws is poor. As provided by the law, any person who contravenes the provision of the Environmental Management Act number 12 of 2011 and Statutory Instrument 112 of 2013 is liable to a fine of between 1,800 kwacha to 15,000 kwacha or serve a jail sentence of up to 2 years. This dam is an illegal dump site in Lusaka's Chawama constituency and continues to be the example of poor enforcement of existing regulations to protect the environment.
Era chusi chirungena manyumba futi pano ndine menso sini yangana ya nafa ya baba. So, boma please, munitandizire.
Chusi chireko yaka. Ero bana bagona mamene omu mchidamu bana bareko gona manyumba chifuka cha chidamu cha menecho manje tizakala bwanji.
Open air burning with impunity is being perpetrated by people with commercial interests in the middle of the community, and despite Camnet TV reporting and engaging authorities on the matter, authorities including the Lusaka City Council seem uninterested.
We only have one dump site, which is Chunga. That's where people are supposed to be taking their garbage in the first place. All these waste management companies are supposed to take their garbage there. Why is it that people are creating a separate dump site which is not even designated? It's bad for people's health, it's bad for the environment, it's unlawful. It's not even supposed to be tolerated. It's not even supposed to be allowed in the first place.
Health experts have been raising concerns that open air burning may lead to various respiratory diseases. Care for Nature Executive Director Nsama Keynes has reminded the Lusaka City Council and the Zambia Environmental Management Agency, ZEMA, to adequately enforce the law on open-air burning.
The Zambia Environmental Management Agency should work with communities to come up with ways of which they can dispose of this waste. In some communities, you find that the councils have been going there to collect the waste, but it is not adequately covering all the communities that we have, and hence we feel that we need to take this seriously. Open air burning contributes to methane, which also contributes to greenhouse gases, which are causing climate change, and Zambia is one of the countries that is already experiencing adverse impacts of climate change, so we cannot underestimate the impact of open air burning.
Clearly, if Zambia is to make significant progress in addressing environmental issues, effective enforcement of existing laws cannot be overemphasized. Patrick Soko, Camnet News.
And Solwezi town clerk Kabombo Mutakela has died in a traffic accident on the Solwezi Chingolo Road. Mr. Mutakela died on the spot near Eno Kavindele Toll Plaza after the vehicle he was in hit into a stationary truck. Solwezi Mayor Remy Kalipa has confirmed the accident that happened last night between 22 hours and 23 hours during a press briefing in Solwezi today. Mr. Kalipa says Mr. Mutakela was coming from a family bereavement in Livingston when he met his fate. And Mr. Kalipa says the driver Jack Kabeya, who was driving a Hilux registration number ATB 3893, which belongs to the council, he is receiving treatment at a hospital in Chingola. He says the municipality has lost a passionate, dedicated and development-oriented officer. He said the late town clerk managed to change the face of the district in the short time he served as the principal officer. And Northwestern Province Permanent Secretary Gratson Katambe said the death of Mr. Mutakela has come as a shock and described the late as a hard-working and visionary officer. Kanyo Katambe said the province has lost an officer who had passion for the development of not only Solwezi but the entire province. The late Mr. Mutakela joined the Solwezi Municipal Council in 2022 after being transferred from Chingola Municipal Council. We take our second and last set of commercials. When we get back, we have the rest of the news.
For immediate coverage of any breaking or latest news in Zambia and around the world on Camnet Television, call the numbers on your screen. Camnet Television, bringing to your screens fair news, impartial news, credible and reliable news all the time. Get the whole truth on Camnet World News. Camnet Television, not just another channel.
Water is life. Each drop counts and each must be cherished. Our tried and tested product meets all international standards. With our smart drip technology, we aim to deliver precision irrigation designed to reduce blockage and wastage, ensuring a high yield. RenGlow, your smart irrigation partner.
Welcome back. In our international news, 10 civilians and 3 soldiers were killed in a number of incidences across Mali on Saturday. The government says 88 jihadists were put out of action in what they were describing as a resurgence of terrorist incidents. Mali has been battling a security crisis caused by separatist fighting in the north of the country since 2012. And since 2020, the military leader has turned away from Western allies and towards Russia. Mali's transitional government in 2022 began working with Russian military instructors. Opponents allege these are mercenaries from Russia's Wagner Group. Here's a roundup of international news.
10 civilians and 3 soldiers were killed in a number of incidents across Mali on Saturday. The government says 88 jihadists were put out of action in what they're describing as a resurgence of terrorist incidents. The attacks began with bombs near Savari Airport, which killed 10 people and injured 61 others. We heard noises after our prayers at around 5:30 to 5:40 a.m., he says. At first we thought the tragedy happened at home. Some people thought that a building collapsed but came to ask us for help at the station. We went to the camp to inform the commander. We also alerted the civil protection. At around 6 o'clock the authorities came and together we extracted the injured and dead. It was really hard. Mali has been battling a security crisis caused by separatist fighting in the north of the country since 2012. Since 2020, the military leader has turned away from Western allies and towards Russia. More than 150 people, including foreign diplomats and officials rescued from battle-scarred Sudan, arrived in Jeddah on Saturday in the first official evacuation of civilians since fighting began. Sudan's naval forces carried out the evacuation with the support of other branches of the army. Among those safely arriving were Saudi citizens and around 66 nationals from 12 other countries, including Kuwait, Qatar, the United Arab Emirates, Egypt, Tunisia, Canada, Pakistan, India and Bangladesh. The evacuees were greeted by soldiers handing out sweets for Eid. It was the first evacuation of civilians from Sudan since violence erupted there a week ago. United States, Britain, France and China are planning to airlift their nationals out of Khartoum using military jets. Clashes erupted on April the 15th between forces loyal to the army chief Abdel Fattah al-Burhan and those of his deputy-turned-rival Mohammed Hamdan Daglo, who heads the paramilitary Rapid Support Forces.
Another day under a hot sun. But people here hope the temperatures won't be as high as previous days. It's those in rural parts of central India who are the most vulnerable. A lack of electricity and water infrastructure means they have little respite from heat waves.
Water is a big issue. I feel extremely hot. My hands and legs are always aching. There is this issue of power cuts. Because of this heat, there are power cuts all the time. These are the problems I've been facing.
In some villages, there is no running water. People rely on wells for their supply, and those in several villages complain of water shortages. In others, entire families, including children, have to work. During the summer months, bricks dry faster, but working in the summer carries risks.
The sun is too harsh. We face a lot of difficulty. Our children fall sick all the time. Sometimes we also fall sick. But what to do? It's the only work we have. Otherwise, there's no other source of employment.
Ram's wife has been sick for 2 days with heat stroke. He can't afford to stop working. It's estimated that 49% of the Indian workforce work outdoors. The heat waves are placing an unprecedented burden on public health, agriculture and other systems. Some believe India's government is underestimating the impact of heat waves induced by climate change.
Most of these heat action plans don't specify who they'll talk to improve their plans and whether they'll reach out to vulnerable groups in cities and villages. So most of the time these consultation mechanisms are also inadequate.
Shyam Lalpal works as a guide at this tiger reserve. He can earn $6 a day, but recently even that's been hard to come by.
Work days dwindle because of heat. Not too many tourists come during summers because of the harsh heat. We mostly stay home because there are fewer visitors. We only manage to get to work twice or thrice in a week.
India has a climate vulnerability index through which it assesses its vulnerability to the climate crisis and works within that framework. The UN and climate scientists are warning heat waves will be more common, and the Indian government is likely to come under growing pressure to update its policies to protect the most vulnerable. Asad Beg, Al Jazeera.
And that is all the news that we could accommodate in our international news. Time now for sports news. And now Tottenham's hopes of securing a top 4 finish disintegrated in humiliating fashion as Newcastle smashed 5 goals in the first 21 minutes on their way to an extraordinary 6-1 win at St James Park. Spurs, needing a positive result to maintain their Champions League ambitions, switched to a back 4 for the first time since January 2022. But interim boss Christian Sterling's tactical plan was left in tatters immediately as Newcastle ran riot to move up to the 3rd. Tottenham's defense continues to crumble, with Alexander adding a quick-fire double in front of the buoyant home supporters, his second coming on 21 minutes, making it the second earliest any Premier League side has ever taken a 5-goal lead. While Newcastle jump above Manchester United into 3rd, Spurs slip 6 points off the Champions League places, having played a game more than Newcastle, with a humbling defeat coming only a week after their late loss at home at Bournemouth. Their season has been plunged into crisis. Well, on that sporting note, we come to the end of the main news this evening. But before we go, let's look at some of the top stories that made the news. President Hakainde Hichilema urged to detach the Office of the Public Protector from State House. Former President Edgar Lungu advised to stay away from politics. A policy think tank is against government decision to import MEALIE meal. Blast in Mali queue and injure dozens as government fears resurgence of terrorist incidents. And finally, Newcastle beats Tottenham by 6-1. When I look at the Camnet verse of the day coming from Psalm 146 verse 1 to 2, it reads, "Praise the Lord, O my soul, I will praise the Lord all my life. I will sing praise to God as long as I live." Thank you so much for watching. On behalf of the entire production and news crew, my name is Louisiana Lupumbwe. Bye for now. God bless you.